Respectful discourse in any society is a conscious effort on the part of all individuals that are involved in that discourse, and it's collectively making the choice to respect each other and thereby choosing the right words to say to each other, especially during periods of dissent and when one is rather angry, and also when debates are heated and you want to hold strongly to your point of view. Jamaicans can be seen as some of the most hospitable people who speak their mind and at the same time are called aggressive, angry, and hostile. Discussions can quickly get heated, and understanding some of the reasons behind it is so very important. Let's examine the concept of respectful discourse among Jamaicans.
The Jam Fam family. Jam Fam, come hang with me. Yeah.
Hello, Wagwan. Big up yourself, whether you're there yard or you're there abroad. Welcome back to another episode of Life with the Jam Fams. And on this one, we're going to be talking about respectful discourse in the Jamaican landscape, because recently there has been a few things that have made it even more so something that I actually do want to talk about, and therefore I would want to have the discussion here and hear your views on the matter in the comment section below. Many people will tell you that they are just going to tell you what's on their mind and you should just deal with it. Or people will attack others and never address the points on which they are having disagreements. Jamaicans have some of the worst words to cuss people out, and dealing with disagreements can quickly go from friendly banter to disparaging words of dress down. If you aren't careful, it could even result in an all-out brawl where punches and blows are thrown. You see this with parents in how they deal with their children, with neighbors and how they deal with each other, with people on the street, family members, teachers at school, and people in their place of work in terms of the type and nature of service that they offer to the customers and clients. And of course, some are also passive aggressive, and so they will spitefully delay or put efforts in place to sabotage or cause individuals to spend much more money than they need to, or waste much more of their time trying to resolve things than actually was necessary. And all of this is simply a power play, and it's a perfect show of mismanaged power through the strength of the tongue, through physical strength, and through corporate abuse of power, and the add-on effect, as mentioned before, of spiteful sabotage. We see it on display so very often, and you hear other colonial countries talk about versions of it that occur in their countries. It wasn't until I went to the UK and heard people referring to children as silly girl or stupid little boy, and the ease of seeing some people groups in brawls or see some operations in the workplace or business, that it started to make sense to me where it may have originated. During colonial times, people brought to and subjected to servitude on the islands were mainly educated and intellectual individuals or soldiers of war. Therefore, understandably, they would challenge the ideas and directions of the European indentured laborers who were their supervisors. Because these people who were indentured laborers and supervising the plantation laborers were from the peasant group in the European hierarchy, which means that they were at the lowest rung on the hierarchy. And so in order for them to assert their dominance, they started to use their words to speak condescendingly to the plantation laborers, and also with the intent to put them in their place. They would be demeaning and dehumanizing to subject them to a feeling of inferiority. When that didn't work, they would use flogging and force. They would be spiteful, kick over their harvests, for instance, and have them start again, and have them see each other as non-entity. This caused self-hatred and hatred for other people like themselves. And of course, it therefore meant that they started to mimic these behaviors to each other and at home. Before long, it became normalized. every people group have another that they could subject to inferiority, and when at the bottom of the hierarchy, it no longer becomes a social class issue. So now it has to be relegated to things like age, size, gender, and physical strength. After years of reverberation, these behaviors have taken root in Jamaican exchange with each other. Many times we don't even realize what we're doing to each other and how little value we place on each other's lives. After a century of living in these conditions, we lost most, if not all, our ability to showcase emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand, use, and manage our emotions in positive ways, to relieve stress, to communicate effectively, to empathize with others, to overcome challenges, and also to diffuse conflict. It involves recognizing and managing our own emotions, as well as understanding and responding to the emotions of others. And it helps us to check our tongue, our fist, and our vengefulness by simply being more understanding, empathizing, and being able to agree to disagree. We were taught that we should force our ideas onto others in order to get conformity. However, we can allow people their free will to believe what they want and have their opinion, even if it is different to ours, so long as they aren't forcing it onto us. Understanding the cause of those behaviors of the European indentured laborers didn't justify their behavior, but hopefully it helps to clarify the reasons behind it and why it's not something that we need to practice. Recently, a mature lady with several levels of educational certificate behind her name, addressing the comment of a Jamaican sports personality, was showcased on the internet, and she dragged him in such a disgraceful manner. It was distasteful and simply despicable. He was talking about things from his lived experience, his perspective, which we cannot dispute how his experience made him feel and what he felt was a disservice to him. He was also speaking as a parent about what choices he would make for the best interest of his children. Yet he was treated with such disrespect, attacked, and none of his concerns raised in the video was even addressed in this scenario that was mentioned where he was being dragged. Though both people are entitled to their opinion, both people are also entitled to human dignity and the respect that should be given to them for their opinion, even if their opinion is a wrong one. There is also the scenario of a mother of boys who now has a daughter, and she's less concerned with bubbles and clips. She uses things like bows and headbands, but not Jamaican style of bubbles and clips in little girls here. Firstly, it's a baby. The pain and the discomfort to sleep with those things in, and the tightness with which some people install them, simply put the hair follicles under so much stress that it could lead to alopecia. She didn't see this as a priority in her grooming and presentation of her child. Of course, we can see that the child is well loved and her developmental milestones are being kept and met, and the mom is really being a good mom to her children. Yet she was attacked for not using clips and bubbles. Can you imagine? Clearly, people seem to not know where the pressure to overgroom or afro-texture hair came from, and as such have not yet figured out how to address that so that they're doing things that are good for them and for the well-being of their hair health, and also their children. The mother in question would have also been very far removed from this whole concept and construct as well. Her daughter was clean, tidy, happy, exploring and thriving, the things that are important in the grand picture. However, people were commenting all sorts of comments, and they weren't saying it in any kind way either. And they're forgetting that that same child is going to grow up and will someday see the venomous comments made about her hair while she was still a baby. I'm pretty sure that the people who were making those comments felt that they were actually helping, but really and truly, were they? And this type of behavior doesn't change in person-to-person interaction either. People in different spaces talk to one another outrageously when they are in disagreements on the streets that sometimes causes others looking on to hang their heads in shame and also in disbelief. It doesn't matter if children are present or not when some of them get started. It doesn't matter where they are either. They will just do it just about any and everywhere. And sometimes they just say some of the meanest things. If that's not sufficient, you might even see worse, like fist battles, totally disregarding each other's value, especially when compared to the reasons for the disagreement. Fact is, we learn these behaviors from European indentured laborers who, based on their hierarchy classification, were peasants, the lowest rung on their hierarchy ladder. This means they were keen to take advantage of the chance to restructure hierarchy, to give themselves a better position. They were certainly not the intellectual, educated, or sophisticated groups of people that we would want to imagine that they were. And yet, centuries later, we are still actively utilizing those destructive, self-hating, egregious behaviors to each other and passing them on as custom legacy to the generation coming after us. It is full time we ameliorate, adapt new behavior and implement those that are actually going to be beneficial to us when we are having discourse, because respect is a paramount part of people actually listening to you when you are speaking. It is also worth remembering that we are in an age of keyboard warfare where people type any and everything and just hit post. The worst bit about it is that they are speaking their opinions as facts, trying to sugarcoat their insults with disingenuous compliments and attempting to denigrate people's character even if they don't know these people, at the expense of asserting being right even when they are wrong. They provide no explanations for their views, no supporting evidence to justify them, just trying to force them onto others through demeaning words or phrase, disparaging character reference, and seeking for others who might be able to support them in their incoherent discussions. If you start your conversation with, "I don't mean to be disrespectful, but," it means one of two things. You either know that what you're going to say next is actually disrespectful, or you believe that the person you're saying it to will perceive it as such. So instead of starting your sentence with that, how about you actually think about how you can say it in a different way that will then ensure that the person you're saying it to can actually understand what you're trying to convey and not feel disrespected in the process. Healthy discussions of ideas and perspectives is actually intriguing and enlightening. Learning to listen and understand instead of rushing to reply is so important to remaining balanced and really unpacking ideologies. There is a subscriber with whom I have some thought-provoking conversations. We share our views. We use supporting statistics, we ask each other questions for clarity, and we agree to disagree on some things. Other things we agree, and we always work to remain respectful, although conversations can become very heated. People all have their experience on issues, and some are based in experience, others by what they have learned or seen others do or say, some of which might be absolute truth. Some might be factually true, some might be contextually true, and others might be a mix of malinformation, disinformation, and misinformation, and others might just be outright lies. Regardless of what the situation is, we don't need to force people to agree with us. We can respect that they have different experiences, different outlooks, and insights. We can enlighten others with our own opinions using evidence and educating them without forcing them to accept what we actually believe. It's more important that they understand what we believe and why we believe than necessarily have to accept and believe what we also believe. When all is said and done, we can agree to disagree. In our exchanges, it is so important to showcase social skills that build and maintain positive relationships, that communicates effectively and resolve conflicts. It's crucial we are self-aware, displaying a clear understanding of our own emotions and how they impact our behaviors, that we are being able to self-regulate, which is managing our emotions and our impulses, especially in difficult situations. And finally, displaying empathy, which is to deeply understand and share the feelings of others. These actions will become an avenue of motivation that allows us to use our emotions to drive ourselves and others to become better individuals and have better outcomes in challenging life's many obstacles. We would like to hear your opinion on the matter. How do you think that discourse happens in Jamaica, especially ones in which dissent takes place, so there is disagreement? How do you see those playing out from your perspective? How do you think that those could be different? We look forward to hearing your views and your opinions in the comment section below. Hopefully this will give us an opportunity to just have a second thought about the things that we post, the things that we say, and to be mindful of how it might come across to other people when we are doing so. There is the power of life and death in our tongue, so it's important that we are deciding how we want to use it. Do we want to use it to give life, or do we want to use it to cause death? We're going on a trip today, road trip again. So just to give you some hints as to where we are going, it's on the south coast.
It has salt water.
It has fresh water.
It's near mangrove.
And it has black sand. And there are aspects of it that are just crystal clear waters. So, hazard a guess where that could be, because that's where we're heading. And we'll see you there. So we're just going to share with you some footage of the journey as we are going there, and these are some of the lush landscape and the majestic mountains and some of the wonderful homes in the different communities along the trail getting there. So hopefully you'll be able to see some of the sights along the way and be familiar with where we are, so that you can be sure to hazard a guess as to where we're heading. Now this is us on the South Coast Highway, if you have heard of it, and this is the leg between Mandeville and Maypen, so that's the leg that we're going to be showing you on. So we're going to travel along that for a little while, and this is what it looks like.
The Jam family. Where I living the good life. We're royal, cruising through the West Indies, having fun, enjoying the good life. Jam family, the Jam family, yeah. Jam fam, come hang with me. The Jam family. Where I living the good life. We're royal, cruising through the West Indies, having fun, enjoying the good life. Jam family, the Jam family, yeah. Jam fam, come hang with me. The Jam family. Where I living the good life. We're royal, cruising through the West Indies, having fun, enjoying the good life. Jam family, the Jam family, yeah. Jam fam, come hang with me. The Jam family.
Thank you for staying with us here on this another episode of Life with the Jam Fam. It was a privilege spending this time here with you. Bye for now, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.